This is the Peugeot 508 SW PSE Hybrid 4 EE88 four-wheel drive. Though I think I'm actually going to call it the 508 Sport Engineered because I want to finish this review before I die of old age. And as well as being one of the most handsome estates currently on the market, this is also the most powerful production Peugeot in ever. And Peugeot Sport Engineered are going to be responsible for all fast Peugeots going forward, so it's quite a big deal. But why, I hear you ask, is Electrifying.com interested in this particular rapid estate? Well, that's because this one's got a plug.
Are plug-in hybrids the best or the worst of both worlds? Please do let me know your thoughts in the comments. But before you do that, I'm going to try and make a case for this part electric French fancy.
What do you think to the way it looks? I mean, personally, I think that's an absolute jaw-dropper, and it comes in an equally striking saloon version. I also think that Peugeot's design team have been on the good drugs for quite a long while now, and this car is no different. I mean, just look at it.
The 508 is a really good looking car anyway, but the Peugeot Sport treatment has amped it up without making it look daft or cluttered. There's a deft bit of blacking out to make the car look a bit angry, or at least mildly disturbed. The body kit is racy without resorting to silly wings, and there are slightly wider wheel arches covering a mildly wider car. Beefy without being all shouty. There are 20-inch wheels hiding big brakes, and the selenium grey paintwork makes it look pretty classy. You can only have it in grey, black or white with black wheels, by the way, but it looks pretty good to me. I even like the little Peugeot Sport green highlights that liven it up a bit and make a bit of a nod to the car's electricity. In fact, I think it's probably the best looking fast estate out there bar none. Sorry Audi, and BMW, and Volvo, and VW, and pretty much everybody else.
So what actually makes it so fast? Well, it's slightly complicated, but I shall attempt to explain. First of all, you get this, which is a 1.6 litre four-cylinder turbocharged engine that gets 197 brake horsepower and 221 pounds-feet of torque. It's also really boring to look at. But added to that, it also has two electric motors, one in the front and one in the back to give it four-wheel drive. And then, after some sort of engineering maths, it works out at 385 brake horsepower and 386 pounds-feet of torque, which again, if the numbers mean nothing to you, it's roughly the same as a Porsche 911, except in a big grey estate car. And if you don't care about those numbers, then how about these? This is a practical estate car that will get from rest to 62 miles an hour in a breath over 5 seconds and run on to a completely illegal 155 miles an hour, all the while carrying a wardrobe and some gurning Labradors. Which all sounds extremely sporty, because it is, but there's electricity in there too, or we wouldn't actually be doing this review. The electric bit comes in the form of an 11.5 kilowatt-hour battery, which is absolutely tiny in electric car terms, that powers the two electric motors. Now that should give you, in theory, an all-electric range of about 26 miles, up to a speed of 86 miles an hour. Now, that's about average. I've been getting about 22 from a full charge, and it's enough for a quick commute or a pop to the shops. Still, it does allow for a combined figure of 139 miles to the gallon or 46 grams per kilometre of CO2, which is good for tax. And actually, driving it around with a usual amount of charging, I've been getting between 65 and 70 miles to the gallon, which I think is pretty good for a car of this size. But when you're not being all saintly and eco-conscious, this 508 PSE has a completely different side to its personality. Actually, it's got multiple personalities. It's that kind of car. There are different ways that you can slice this dynamic pie, because the 508 PSE actually has 3 different settings for the dampers. So they're the things that soften or harden the suspension. So you've got comfort, which is full comfort and as soft as it possibly can be. There's hybrid, which tries to give you a bit of best of both worlds. And then there's sport, which is really fully hard and as responsive as possible. Now, I prefer comfort, but I wouldn't necessarily listen to me because I really like slippers and prefer to be in bed before 10 PM. But then there are 5, count them 5 different drive modes, and they might take a little bit of explaining.
Electric mode does what you think and keeps the car in EV only until the battery falls over. Comfort, again, has a soft ride and the two powertrains doing their thing in the most efficient manner. Hybrid mode tries to figure out which powertrain best suits what you're up to at the time, and Sport gives you everything all of the time. So all the horsepower, a faster throttle and the hardest suspension setting, as well as the most aggressive brake regeneration to make sure you've always got some battery to power the e-motors. There's also a mode called four-wheel drive and tuned for maximum traction in slippery conditions like snow.
And you know what? It is genuinely fast, but more than that, it's comfortable and it's flowing. There is a little bit of ride harshness because the wheels are so big and it's got low profile tyres. But it does have that ability that some French cars have of being able to ride and hit bumps without getting all sort of flustered and out of shape.
As you would expect, there's a big boot, good enough for dogs or a kid you don't particularly like, big space in the rear seats and all the practicality you can reasonably expect for daily life. And as for the practicalities of it being a plug-in, an empty battery will take 7 hours to charge if you plug it into a 3-pin plug, 4 hours if you have a 16 amp wall box, and less than 2 hours if you have a 32 amp. All perfectly average.
I have a funny feeling that a lot of car manufacturers actually make plug-in hybrids to sort of appear greener, and also because they take advantages of tax loopholes that mean that the cars are quite cheap if you're clever. But I actually don't think that's the case here. I think Peugeot Sport Engineered have actually come up with this because it offers a genuinely sorted car. It's fast and it's fun when you want to go quickly, and then if you knock it right back, it's actually very calm and efficient. In fact, the only big downsides that I can see are that slightly sleepy gearbox and the fact that this is one very expensive Peugeot.
Ah, yes. Now, the saloon version of this car is just under 54 grand, and one like this SW is just over 55, which is strong money, even if it is the best looking estate I can think of. And yes, I did just say that. I actually think this is a better car to drive than either the non-FEV Volvo V60 Polestar or the Audi S4, but it's not quite as good from behind the wheel as the new BMW M330e M Sport Touring, and that's also a FEV, and that starts at £46,180, although it has to be said, it's not quite as well equipped as standard. But the real killer? It's to do with depreciation. The money your car loses just by being used. Because the people from the car industry that know about these things think that the 508 is going to hemorrhage value, and that means the amount you'll have to pay per month in finance will be way higher than rivals from Germany, which are seen as better investments. In fact, some figures we saw suggested the 508 could cost around £1,000 per month on a private lease, and a BMW 330e would be less than half that. Even an Audi RS4 is about 20% less per month, which is a lot to swallow.
So there you have it. It's a plug-in hybrid that doesn't feel compromised at all. It's a car so good looking that people don't actually believe it's a Peugeot. But at £55,000, I think it's probably going to be a bit rarer than Peugeot would like.
As ever, let us know what you think about this particular FEV in the comments. Am I right about the looks, and does plug-in ever make sense? And don't forget to log on to electrifying.com for info on this car's plug-in rivals. Stuff like that BMW 330e, the Skoda Octavia VRS FEV and VW Passat GTE PHEV. They're all the same, just a little bit different.